Hello everyone, welcome to Software Testing Expert Talk series. Today we have a guest who is a software test consultant having more than 21 years of experience of working in IT industry so far. He carries proficient knowledge in test automation and various tools related to it. He is a test automation architect in one of the prestigious organizations across the world with having responsibility of developing organization-wide automated test strategies and frameworks. He is a member of BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. Plus, he is the co-founder of the Klassi brand and have an open source automation framework named as Klassi-JS, which is hosted on both NPM and GitHub. He has acted as technical advisor to a major fashion house and an expert witness to a leading international law firm. Not only that, he is also a speaker at tech conferences and meetups dealing with and highlighting test automation. In his personal life, he is also the proud father of 3 awesome kids, named as Leanne, Leland, and Leshan, an ex-international rugby player, ex-military personnel. Please join your hand and help me in welcoming Mr. Larry Goddard.
Hi, thank you, Ajay. Thank you very much for that. And it's a pleasure to be in here to talk to you today about my experiences and everything else that goes together with it.
All right.
From here on, I guess the whole concept here now is, what is Klassi-JS? Where did it come from? How did I come about doing it? So without further ado, let me just
yeah.
So Klassi-JS, it was born in itself out of the need for having a framework to test some work at one of my previous jobs a couple of moons ago, and where the concept was we had all this amount of test cases to get done. It was taking days to do it manually, and we wanted something to do it with automation. And that's where I decided to build a framework to do it. There are a lot of frameworks out there, but I looked at a lot of them and I decided it was not, doing what I wanted to do at that particular time. And that was that's where Klassi-JS, the whole concept was born. It was just a framework at the time. The naming came later on. So in effect, it was built to do regression testing, and out of all the choices I had, you had Selenium, you had WebDriver IO that was now making its mark on the world, and all these other things. I looked at it and I decided then that I was going to stay in the JavaScript space and I was going to go with WebDriver IO. And so I started looking at it from that angle. And I mean, as things considered, I went down that route. We looked at it. I created it, and it worked. And we decided to use it from then on with some tweaks over the years. So it's a Klassi-JS itself. It's as you can see, it's just a debuggable BDD JavaScript test framework built on WebDriver IO and 𝐀𝐠𝐞𝐧𝐝. Because we're staying with all the whole BDD thing and building with 𝐀𝐠𝐞𝐧𝐝. So in itself, it's a standard, what we call a standard framework to do regression testing. But I just thought that it would have been much better if we could have integrated other things in it instead of having separate frameworks to do separate things. And that's where, so now, as it stands now, Klassi-JS is functional stroke regressional test tool. You could also test your APIs in there. You could also do accessibility testing. You can also do some visual testing as well. So visual comparison in there. And it's also, we also integrated the whole browser stack, Lambda Test, and Source Lab integration. It works. They use all of them with it. It's easily used in those instances. So there are other features as we go along that I put in there for comfort, more for comfort than anything else. Things like emailing, where you can email the report at the end of the day to whoever needed on the team. Things like the report that is being generated from it. I grabbed the report in two versions, as a JSON file as well as an HTML file. So again, for if whoever needs it and what they're required for. Inside, I also decided as time goes on, because if you're on a massive project, your reports can get so big that it's too big to email. So to fix that, I introduced some the S3 bucket in there. So now you can now take your report, push it into that S3 bucket, and just extract the HTML link from the report and pass that into that email to whoever. So you take away the burden of trying to send an email with a lot of files in it that is all kind of 20 and 30 megs big, based on the package that you're working on in terms of what you're testing. And I think that was it. So I think now what I will do is I will just walk you which looks in real term, and get, as say it comes under a search up Klassi-JS, and this is what you see. And of course, it comes with its introduction, how to install it, how to use, how to call it in your project, and the different options you have that's available in there. And then there's also the directory structure that works best for it. And in this instance, it's different to a lot of other frameworks, because as you can see here, to help with the usage in the built-in functionality, I've added an environment config file at the base of the project. And this is the folder structure. Now, this is the folder structure that best suited for it, like this. You have your feature folder, your page objects, shared objects, step def report, and your environment.js file. And like I say, that is the file that contains all the environment variables that you would require. This folder here, in its sense, is built on the fly. It's created automatically on your test run, as seen there. And of course, I went on to explain what happens with what is being used, where, what it is, and to that effect, I also added some helpers, things that I looked at and tell myself, okay, in all doing testing over the years, these are things that would automatically come to hand and somebody will have to write constantly. So I created what we call a helper file to load your page, a simple thing, to take images, to compare your image, to make an API call, to write some text or file, to read from a file, to what's the current date with time, clicking on a hidden element, and doing some of the things that that is constantly being used, constantly within a framework, within an environment. And of course, the other thing with Klassi-JS as we're going along is that it uses both the WD protocol as well as the dev protocols as suggested by Google, by Chrome. Right, Google Chrome DevTools. You use both of them inbuilt, and you swap between them flawlessly. One, on its natural usage, it will use the DevTool by default. And if you want to use the WebDriver protocol, you just pass that little that tag to it, and before your browser, it will use the WebDriver protocol. And of course, as you can see, we go on to explain what visual testing we're using, what we use for the API testing, what we use for accessibility testing in there. And here's a little example of what the test report looks like in HTML mode, and what the accessibility report looks like in HTML mode. So you get this as your file, and you click on this thing. And outside of that, we have little how to debug, how you're going to put in the debugger. And of course, if you check the code out and you want to think it, I tell you how to run. It have a built-in demo test. One will do a normal search, and the other one, it will do an API. So you have an idea how the framework does it. Right now, that's the framework in itself. Are there any questions at this point before I move on.
So just want to know, Larry, as you told, like it's built on WebDriver IO in a standalone mode. Okay. So
Yeah.
what Klassi-JS have done differently apart from that?
Okay, yeah, I mean, in this sense, what ClassiJS have done differently to all the other boilerplates you'll find out there is that when you're searching for a test tool, you have a lot of boilerplates where people would do things and and you could just copy it and then try to build from that. One of the different things that I did with ClassiJS was I made it a completely functional framework where you could actually take the framework and start a project in like 3 seconds. And to do that, what I have done is created a template with this entire folder structure onto you. So, and we could just jump to that by clicking on the template here. It will take you into the, I call it Klassi template, and you can use this template. We all know how to use GitHub here. So in this case, just for argument's sake, you click on use template, your thing will come up here because you're in GitHub. You give it a name, you can put it in your private repo, and you click create template. And what will do, that will create this exact template for you here, as you see it here. Mm-hmm. And I'll show you it inside my ID in a minute. And it will copy this exact template as it stands here for you in it. And the only thing that is really, that you'll really look at, and you can see you will have all this. You'll actually get all this when you pull it in. So you still have reminders of everything that the framework does. Now, one of the things is your package.json file. In your package.json file, I create a few scripts that you could or may or may not use as you go along. But what is relevant in here is this part, your dependency. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, your dependency is calling ClassiJS 4.01, and that is the latest version I have at the moment in npm. So all you do is check the code out and use it. So that is one of the main differences between what I did with ClassiJS and what any other normal boilerplate would do. I actually create a whole environment for you. So instead of you having to take your, go out the build your directory structure and pull it in as a dependency, I say, you know what, let's give some of these people a hand. Some of us new to automation, and that might be a little tedious at this point. So let them just copy a template and do it. So to do that, I will now show it from in the IDE. Click on that. Yeah, there we go. So in my IDE, I will walk through the code with you as it stands and how it was built. Now, the thing with building ClassiJS, what is this? Let me just open this a little bit. Yeah, is this? It's all modular. It's completely modular. And by that I mean, in the runtime folder, and this is where all the, as the people say, all the magic happens. In the runtime folder, all these functions, image compare, the Lambda driver, the mailer, the S3 reporter, your world.js, all these we can make changes to all of these files and the underlying structure without breaking how the actual framework works. So by that, it means at the moment I just use for image compare, I'm using Node Resemble.js to do my image comparison to build it. So it means I could then, as time goes along, I could look for something else that could do the job even better and more efficient and change it out. And once I don't change the name of this function, it means I could change it out, put in the new module that I'm using to do it, and it will be, I'm checking a new version of the code. And when you do an update on your version, you get the new version. It will work in seamlessly as before because I didn't change the name of what the actual function is. In this case, image compare. And it's like that for all the other bits inside the framework. The mailer, in a sense, it is used node mailer. And again, I can change things out and things. So a billet modular, not only that, you now could say, oh, I like how this works. Could I use it? And you can literally come and copy this file out, rename it to whatever you want to call it, and it will work in your own project as well. And that was one of my reasons for doing it like that, to make things easier, so that when people come into the environment and they look at it, they can say, oh, this is good. And somewhere along the line, they get the confidence to take parts out of this one and use it for their own purposes with ease. And that's why, again, that's why the differences in how and why I build it like that, and why I build the index file that takes, well, we know what the index file is. This is like the brain of the operation, and this is where we create everything else, where we load it up, where we fire it up, where we pass in all the different variables for the tags for the options we will use later on, and things like that. So that in itself is how it is, and that's what it is. And as we hear, you would realize from looking and see a 𝐀𝐠𝐞𝐧𝐝𝐚 up here, because the framework in itself, it comes built in with the ability to use 𝐀𝐠𝐶I as your continuous integration tool. If you use Jenkins per se, then you could just write in your own Jenkins lines of code and pull it, and it will work just the same. And same thing for AWS pipeline and all the others. And for that we have, because I have worked with Browser Stack and Lambda Test, I decided to build it in one time, so it's there. But if it is used Source Lab, the same process will follow. You could just create your thing and use it. And that is where this file comes in, the environment config file. Inside that file, if I may just move this, inside that file is where we call our environment. So your dev environment, your test environment, your UAT environment, your prod environment, your pre-prod environment, all these other environments, they come in and you list them under the environments, and then they are usable, globally usable across your project. It's just a matter of saying environment dot, and it will give you the whole list of the different environment that you require. And the other part of it, the other important part of the file, the way I've done it, is this data config file. And here is our thing. Your project name is this here. It will work comfortably without it. This here is just for that when the report is printed, it will have your project name in the report. So that's what that is there for. The email data section is where you would put a list of all the people who you require this email to go to, the report email to go to, and so they will get it. Like I said earlier on, we have a built-in email functionality inside. It will just send these little emails to who they need to be. This accessibility report, yes, is just there by default, and that is if you have accessibility, you do some accessibility testing, it will trigger and send that report with the email as well. So that's why this is just here by default. If you don't use accessibility, this is just be ignored. And then here is the setting to pick up your credentials for, in this case, this is Lambda Test. In this case, this is Browser Stack. And like I was saying earlier on as well, where we have a build this AWS so big to be sent by email. You can push to the S3 bucket and then extract it with just the HTML parts of the report. You can extract that and send it to the user. And this, of course, is your credentials, where you pass in your credentials, and that's it. And that in itself is all it takes to use it. So as it stands right now, this framework will work as it is, and I'll show that in a second. It will work. We just won't be able to use Lambda Test or Browser Stack or send the AWS thing because we don't have credentials for it. You know, we don't have a thing there for it. Outside of that, everything else will work. Okay, and so I think that is it in terms of how it is. Ajay, do you have any other questions at this moment?
So coming to next question, so I'm just thinking about why one should choose Klassi-JS when there are many automation frameworks of JavaScript are readily available in the market.
That's a good question, actually. I just think that because of the way that the reasoning behind it, I think you should choose Klassi-JS for the fact that it's not just a boilerplate that you will now have to try and figure out, oh, how does this really work in its sense, and try to build around it. I think you should choose it from the point of view that, okay, here I am, I'm looking for something, I am new to the environment, not just new, but it will be mostly the people who now coming in would have this kind of urge. So they want something that they could use as an example to say, let me do a POC for my boss on how, you know, what is there. And that is where Klassi-JS comes in. You could use it in the sense of it's already built, and that is now, I'll now show that by just changing screen. So now the template that I talked about earlier is here. And so this is why I'm saying you should use this one instead of, you know, some of the other boilerplates out there. One, and then it is completely used in WebDriver in a standalone form. And for that, we get away from having to create a config file specific for each environment. Now we could just have our thing and pass a variable for our environment inside our config file. Inside here, pass our values there in this one file, and it will do for all the different environments that we may create as we go along. Now, when you check the template out, as you see, it comes with all the, just as I show you. Now, if you use Lambda Test, all you're required to do is literally delete this folder. Go in and delete it, and done. And now you're using Lambda Test as your cross-browser person. And the take that you come in here and in your thing file, and you delete that, and you pass in your credentials for Lambda Test. You're passing your credentials in there, and it will just work after that. You'll just pick it up and work. And that is, you know, and that is one of the reasons why I think they should choose this one as opposed to any of the other boilerplates out there. And I will do, and I will just demo that to show a lot of other things as well. So this is me checking it out, my package JSON that you could use. And because we get rid of browser stack, we don't need this script anymore. We can get rid of that because we don't need it, right? These other scripts that we have here is again just a stepping. This is for continuous integration browser stack, so we could get rid of that one, delete. Right, and now we have continuous integration Lambda Test local, and a dev and a start. Now, the reason for, so these are just scripts that you could build on or just delete them if you don't need them. But this dev is, instead of me trying to do something and typing out all this every single time, I just create a script for it. So let's do yarn install. And while that getting installed, you will see it will find it. It will now go off and install itself. It's done. Let's go back to the terminal window. And that's as you can see, that's that index. A few seconds for that. So yeah, so it's and there you go. It's completed. So now As you can see, that is not highlighted anymore, right? And
Right.
so, as I said, it comes inside it of we have an API test and we have a search test that it comes in, it just come in there as a feature. And we have an S3 report feature as well. Now that comes in it because we have that whole function. If we're not going to use it, it's just a matter of deleting it, right? And it's not required. Or you could literally just delete this and put in all your things. And then same thing for Lambda Test. If you're using Lambda Test in this instance, we already set up all the different bits. All you have to do is come in here and pass in your project name. And so that's what it will be in the report. All right. And then, of course, we have page object for your API and your search, and then your step definition like anything else. Because we're using 𝐀𝐠𝐞𝐧𝐝𝐚 in here. Now, before I run the demo, Ajay, do you want to ask any other questions before I actually run the demo?
No. I'm fine as of now. I'm actually eagerly waiting for the demo and looking forward for it. Yep.
Okay. So let me just push that to the top, and let me just bring up a separate terminal. Now, this is just my preference. I like to run my commands straight from a terminal outside, as opposed to the terminal inside the ID, inside my ID here. It's just a personal preference, but you could run it either way. All right. So this is just a personal preference. Actually, for this demo, I'll just run it inside here. Okay, now, so when we look back and we know, like I say, I created this instead of having to type out the entire thing, and I'm running a tag called search from inside the get method feature. So it's called search, and the tag is search. In the get method feature, we have the API one. So what I'm going to do for this demo is I'm just going to delete the tag, the actual tag, and just use it. So here I will say yarn run dev at search. Now, and hit enter. Ooh, what a catastrophe! What sadness! What happened there? Let's go. Let's see what's happening here. Let's see what's happening here. It pulled get video browser stack. Oh, so let's fix that. Let me just go backwards one into here, and I will run the demo from here. Okay. The reason being the template is set up for you to fill out some data and stuff to use the template when you pull it. So I'll run the demo from here. So same thing, yarn run dev, and just to ensure that it says yep. So no tags, and dev at search, and go. So here we go, and it's running the search. And as the search is running, as it's running through it, you would see, as you can see there just now, the page just got small, and before it extracted back to its normal size. And for that is because, and I will show that now once it's all done. Yep, it's all done. So that what it did was, because let's look at the actual code for that search functionality we just run. In there, I did the demo, and I did it for it to run an accessibility test on the page, and for it to also take an image of the page. Right? So it didn't just do a search. It did the search. It also did accessibility for the page, and it run that. And then, as we can see, we now have a report folder. And the report folder would section out itself by browser. So every time the browser change, it will create a new it will create a new folder for that particular browser and put in the reports and the accessibility, if it's have accessibility running within them all. So to see what the report look like, I can do two things. I could either right click here and go say open with browser and choose a browser, or I could just copy this, open a browser, and paste that link in it, and it will open. So I will just go for the fastest method, which is just this, just doing this. And voila, so you have a report. And if we so we have the report, and it's called Klassi. We run a test, and there it is. So that's the bit, and we had on the accessibility, we had a little error conquer 21. Now, and so we know we run the test, it works in the browser, it works, and everything. Now, if we look at if we go back and in the report folder, we did some accessibility. And again, same thing. If we do right click in my browser, in here, browser, Chrome, and now there you go. You have an accessibility report for that one search page, for that page that we put the search on. And as you can see, this is the URL for that page that we was on. And of course, now we have create different violations of it, and these are expandable. And your dev now will know, oh, we know what's wrong, and they can go ahead and fix it from an accessibility point of view. It tells you your image must have alternate text, and it tells you where the image is, and you just need to undergo it. So it's a kind of a built-in accessibility report per page. It will do it. It will create one of these for every single page that you put that you want it to check for accessibility on. It's not a one command for the entire thing. You need to tell it you wanted to do it on all the different pages, and it will do it. And so those are the reports that comes out. So you have this one, and you have that one that comes out immediately out of your report. So I think that is how it is, and we put in, and oh yeah, just to say that because we have those are the reports, and because we take some images, and this is the first time we run the test, we wouldn't have any failures where images is concerned, but it will create the images as we went through. So it did create, you see, as a whole page image. It took an image of this page, it took an image of that page, and of course, it took an image when we pass out. So we have the images for every stage of what it was. And that's the result page at the end. So next, so it means this is just a demo of how the different bits and pieces work in it. In its sense, when you actually run in this, you have your landing page, and because it's a CSS image, it will take an image of the page, and anything change the next time that test run on that page, something might be broken, some image didn't appear, as the case may be, it will flag it up, and you would know, oh, I have a little issue here, and it will think. Now, in the report, because everything went smoothly, this is the first time, so we now have what we call the baseline image for this. So the next time we run this test again, right? The next time we run this test again, because it's a search page, and we'll just do that, we should have a failure. And we'll see what the report does, and we'll see what the report does with it. So let's just run the report. Let's run the test. Let's see if we had any, if it failed or if it was just so geniusly good. Yep, there we go. We had one failure. All right, we had one failure. And let's scroll up. Actually, we have a so we see, and we know here from our console that is an image that failed. Right? I was expecting 0.1, and now how does that look in the report? Well, if we look at the report, that would be this one, because this is the first one that ran at 1700 yeah, 17, yeah, 1748, and this one is the XML. Where is it? Where's my report? Oh yeah, there we go. Let's open it back and open in browser Chrome. Wrong report. Sorry, my bad. Opening the wrong report. Come on, get away. Get away. Open the wrong report. Let's just got John McKinney code and get the correct report. And here we go. Yep, 170610. That's the report. That's the report we need. That's the latest report. Open in a browser and open. And there you go. It failed. Now, when we open the report, now we have a difference. So we still have where we went. We still have the error content. And now we have something that says, and this pops out, it tells us that we had an image failure. Okay. Yeah. And then what it did was, it took a screenshot of the page that it was on when the image failed. So you have that in your report now. So now you know what failed, where it is, and it also tells you which one failed. As you can see, it was space 999 result 1.2 PNG. So that was the failure. Now, the thing is, because this is one image, because this is just one image that failed, let's just jump up here to our artifacts folder. Because this is just the one image that failed. Yeah, so you see where the failure was. That's where the failure was on the page. And this is, so that's where, so now all we need to do is get in here, grab this image and replace it. That's the correct image. This is the right image now. And we could copy and paste that into our folder here, rewrite this one, and now that becomes the new baseline. But you might ask yourself, that's just one image. How do we fix that if it's multiple images? You know, like you're running this in your actual test environment, and or your whatever environment you're using, and you want to now fix that. That in itself is fixable, because if we look at our index file and we scroll up to the options, to our options, and we have this option here called, where is it? Update baseline image. There you go, that option. If we copy that, just copy that for usage. Just for the ease of this. And you go in here and you pass that in here. What that will do, it will and you rerun your test, it will rerun and update all the images in your test with the latest version of that image that failed previously. So that's how you go about updating all the images in your environment. Now, you could also, instead of passing it here, you could also pass that command on your command line. You can actually just pass it in here as well, and it's going to do exactly the same thing. And it will do exactly the same thing. You pass it and you pass that, and it will just update all the images that failed previously. It will update them. Okay. Right now, that's the search functionality. And now we also deal with like the APIs. I say we have the ability to write code and test your APIs as well. You know, and as soon as this is, well, this could run in the background. And so to do that, you have we could run when this finished. I think it's done there. I think it is. Let me just scroll up here a little bit. Yeah, I think it's finished. Yeah. So the thing is, now we could pass, we pass in search. And now if we do API, and just because we run an API as in its BDD format, right, using 𝐀𝐠𝐞𝐧𝐝𝐚. So we have a feature. Get a call, check something, do some stuff, and run some data on the screen. and we do API instead. And what it will do, like everything else, it will just there you go, it's done. And then if we scroll back up slightly, that's why we did it. I bring this here so you can see it. And let's go up. And so here we run. So there's it. So we run the API call. And as you can see, it started to run the functionality. So given that you call an endpoint, so it captured the response time. There is a response time in milliseconds. And then it checked that the status code was 200 and it printed because we know that is what it did. So that one will pass. And here we'd say just return the content of the API. In this case, we're using what's that thing called? It's just a site where it's there for testing for you to test the API stuff, and that's what we're using. So they just bring back what have on it's called HTTP bin. That's what it does, and that's just the content of it. So that could be the content of your actual API, maybe your users, your different renditions and everything, and that is what it is, and and that is how it works. And this little bit here that you're seeing in my thing is I am running NYC for code coverage to see is my code coverage thing to see what it does, and this just tells you how much. In this case, it used all of it, and it didn't use any part of the doctor search bit of it. And so there's just something you add in as you go along for different bits and pieces. Depends on all what you need. And for that, I'm using what they call NYC, and that is what produced that code coverage thing on the bottom there. So I think that's it in its sense, how the framework works, how it is, and you just cut in the framework. You're cutting it, and you have a template already built for you, and you can use that, and away you go, and it's usable. And then you go off and write your own code.
Okay.
So that's it in a nutshell. So any questions?
So I see some Cucumber files in features under features. Okay. So do we need something from like how can we set up Cucumber features here on Klassi-JS?
Okay, because it's a BDD framework, so that means by definition we're gonna run Cucumber. I mean it's simple. You create your feature, like in this case, let's say this one. You literally just create a file with the .feature extension in your feature folder. And remember the folder structure. This folder structure is specific to how Klassi-JS would work. In some places you would find where you have your feature folder, and inside this folder you have your page object folder as well as a step definition folder, all living inside the feature folder. So you have as part and parcel. I choose not to do that. I choose to build it in this way and separate them in their own space. But but this here follows the standard that you can literally go on cucumber.io. I think that is the website called cucumber.io. You can literally and copy and paste a feature from there straight into a page in here, and it will work. Because we're following the standard, straightforward Cucumber fundamental. We're not doing anything different. We're not doing anything intuitive at all. We're using raw Cucumber features as they are. So to use Cucumber, and again, it's built on Cucumber, so you would need a little bit of Cucumber knowledge before you could use it.
All right. Okay, Larry, coming to next question. So what kind of application does Klassi-JS can or cannot automate?
Okay, we could, because of the way it is, you can automate anything that is web-based. So websites, web applications, anything to do with the web. You use 𝐀𝐠𝐞𝐧𝐝𝐚 talk to you. You could go from, like I say, you could go from end-to-end testing. You could do functional testing on it. You could do regressional testing, and you could see. You can also look at your accessibility and your visual representation of everything there. What I don't have and what it could do is it could also test mobile apps. And it could test mobile apps because our underlying, what we call the engine that we're using is WebDriver IO. And by default, WebDriver IO have Appium built into it. So you could actually test your web application you could write your code and test it out it's directly into here. Just the only thing is you would have to set up your IDE to make a call to your mobile what's it called again on the top of my head? I just lost track of it. Your emulator. It'll call your mobile emulator for you and you can run your test. And because we using Lambda Test in here or browser stack, you could run a test on an emulator in browser stack or Lambda Test and use the emulators from right inside your code, and use it. So basically you have one code base that will test your mobile app as well as your web app without having to have two separate code bases, one for mobile and one for web.
All right. Okay, coming to next question, Larry. So I have seen people struggling in debugging their scripts. So how easy to debug automation scripts in Klassi-JS? Could you help us in demonstrating it?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I say, for debugging. So let's do the search feature because that will have some debugging in it. Let's go to the page object.
Yeah.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put in a breakpoint. Let's see where. Here. Where does it take the image? Let's see. So take image there. Right there. So we're gonna put in a breakpoint there. And all you do from then, because your IDE, all the IDEs now come with debugging for functionality in it. Right. So for my IDE, I just use IntelliJ. All I do then is let's do this at search because this is the one I want to debug. I click on it and you see I get debug. I hit that debug and what it's going to do, it immediately attach the debugger to it. It will fire up the tests. Where am I? Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong thing. My bad. I went out too much. Hold on, let me do this. Let me close this so you wouldn't do that again. Right, so same thing. Go into my search. Put my point where I need it. Jump into my package JSON. There's the dev I'm running. Let's take this out because we know we're not gonna update any tags or anything like that. Any images. Put it in. Hit debug and there we go. We hit the debugger. It's attached, as you can see. It's listening to it. It's attached, and now we just wait. And there you go. That's will open up and it will stop. It will stop. And now, when we go back into the environment, and there you go, you could walk through. It stopped there because I will put the breakpoint, and now you can now walk through and see and help fix whatever your problem may be by stepping through. You can then step through the process of what's going to happen in taking. So that's how easy it is to use to debug your code using Klassi-JS in your using IDE and app. This have been, and it's that easy in both IntelliJ and VS Code, right? And VS Code. And then you just literally walk through, and it's whatever is required. So that's how easy it is to do debugging of your code in it. And then when you're done, you close the debugger, you close the debugger, and then you just go back to the script and remove the breakpoint, and that's it. When the code run next time, it wouldn't stop there in its debug mode anymore because you remove the breakpoint. So
Right.
to debug code in here is just a matter of putting a breakpoint where you need it, because of course you know what's broken. You put it your breakpoint there, and then you just call it, and it works. Like I say, it works perfectly fine in IntelliJ, as you just see, and it also works on VS Code as well.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, coming to next question, Larry. So apart from Circle CI and Jenkins, do we have any other information regarding CI/CD integration with Klassi-JS?
Built in, not built in, but it could be, as it stands, as you know, I work for Oxford University Press, and we have Jenkins, CI/CD, AWS pipeline, and I can't remember what the other one is in terms of what we use, because we're so big that we use all the different technologies and stuff. We use different bits and pieces here and there. It's not a one tool fit all, and it's not a. We have no problems because we use ClassiJS across the board for QA across the board, across the entire OUP infrastructure, and it's on, and to use, like I say, in some instances we have the CI circle file where you fill out it's a YML file that you just fill out some stuff in and it works. In some places we integrated it works with Jenkins as well as AWS pipeline, and it's just a matter of you creating, like in this case we create the CI circle pipe YML file for it, and you do the same. You do the same for anything else. Just like how, like this, it could run on Travis. So create a file for it, and then it will just execute itself in Travis and work. So it works. So you have all, so right away there, you're not limited to using one particular CI pipeline at all, to CICD pipeline at all in using the framework. It's completely usable.
All right. Okay, coming to next question, Larry. So I just want to know from you what skill today's tester should acquire to excel in his or her career.
That's a good question. I like to tell people, especially when I ask a lot. To me, some of the skills is have nothing to do. And funny enough, the skills I just talk about have nothing to do with anything at all. It's about a personal thing, and that I mean, what you need to do is you get it into QA. You want to do automation. Then what you need to start to do is look at what it have out there. Look at what it have out there. Despite you might be working for a company and they're using X, you don't necessarily need to limit yourself to X. You could do your own research, look at what it have. And as we say in the beginning of this conversation, check out some boilerplates. In this case, check out things like Klassi-JS, where we have an environment already built for you, and you can use it. And do this on your own little time. Do a lot of research on what's there, how it could be used, how it's used in different places. What is common? One of the most important thing is compatibility. You want something that instead of you're on project A today and you use framework X, and then they move it to a different project now, and now you have to find a new framework to use on that project. No, you want to find a project, a common ground with a framework that you can move from project to project, and it doesn't really matter what project you're in. It will just work flawlessly, like Klassi-JS does. It just works flawlessly. You just plug it into your framework, and once you're using, in this instance, it's because you're using Cucumber or BDD as we want to refer to it is, and we have WebDriver under the bonnet, we could just pull in our code and use it. And now the good thing about this is as well is, and I don't have a demo of that, which I should have thought of before, but as that question came up is, it doesn't just use it, you can also use TypeScript. You can literally write your test code in TypeScript and it will just work. You don't have to make any changes to anything. You just write your test cases in TypeScript and it will work. And so that's why I like to tell people coming in, look at your manual testing what you do, because you would have been testing, of course, and look at what products that are out there for automation, and don't go away with the mindset that company X is using Y framework, and that is what I would then use throughout. No, take the time to look at all the different other ones out there and see what is best for what you're doing, and also make sure that it is, in terms of automation, that it is compatible with every other thing that's going on around you. Like you say, your CI environment, your cross-browser environment, and things like that, and all the different browsers you may want to use and things. So you need to make sure it's one and things. So that is my advice to the people that are now coming into it in terms of getting into automation.
All right, Larry. Okay, coming to next question, and that would be the final one. So your words of wisdom for today's tester.
What words of wisdom do I have for today's testers? I think we'll just add to what I was just saying. My words of wisdom to the people who do automation today, and even so they're doing manual testing, it still resonate across, is that don't ever look at what you're doing like if it is built inside of a box. Look at it from a point of view of, is this the only way this could be done? Is this way the most efficient way to do it? And look at, despite tools, you have a lot of tools out there. Look at tools that you could incorporate into your day-to-day life for testing, and look at tools that could incorporate everything else that already existing that you have, and pay attention to not just you as a tester, but pay attention to the team that you're working with. And by that I mean, if you testing, you need to have a good rapport with your devs, so that once you find what we call a bug, you can now talk to the devs about it and only come on a common ground on how to reproduce it, how it's fixable, and and how you could fix it, and things like that. And so I would say, take your career as not just as going to work to get a paycheck, but look at your career as what it is I could do to help the wider community as a whole. And you follow the footsteps of like people like myself and others, where we decided, okay, to do that, what we can do is take our knowledge and build something that the people that come in after us could use, and try to do that. So you put the knowledge out there, and then you get yourself involved in tech talks and join all these different organizations where you have access to conferences and talks by different people from different aspects, because QA is not just in a box. There are different aspects of QA and different aspects of doing it. So it's all about getting yourself involved in your job, what you would call it as a job, as well as your passion for it by joining, like I say, like Ministry of Testing, for instance. You join a little organization like that where it's a community, and you can learn from it. So you join, so you have these communities where you do stuff. And the same thing, and that's just to say, like for Klassi-JS, just to add this, is that's what we did with it. That's what I did with it. I created it, and I also created a glitter that you could use that to ask any questions that you have for it. And in the interim, so you have that, and you ask your questions, and it will be we will respond to it from there, and that now add to the wider community who are using it, where they can now come in and have a problem, but the question may have already been asked, and they can pick it up from in the community. And like everything else, that's how I say you should do it as a QA engineer. It doesn't matter what your label is, but that's how I look at it. That's my word of wisdom to them. Use it, get the experience, and then join these little things to where you could then pass back to the wider community.
Awesome, Larry. Thanks for sharing this much knowledge and your words of wisdom. for today's tester. If anyone wants to reach out to you over the internet, and then what are the ways to reach out to you?
I think what you I know you could push this onto your channels. I have you can get me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, and I'm also, like I said, I'm also have the Gitter account that they could use. I think if my memory serves me right, I think I send you those. I think I send you those links.
Yeah,
but what I'll do is after this, I'll send it to you again so you can add it. So you can add it to them for them, so anybody looking at it could see it there. I will send that to you.
Yeah, I will add them in the description of this video.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Larry, finally, we have reached to closure of this wonderful session on Klassi-JS presented by you. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up this session?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would like to share to people is, like I said, go out there, look at the different frameworks we have out there for usage. Make sure it is what you require for what you want to do, and use them like that. And then after you learn, give back to the wider community. And it's a way of us saying, okay, I have learned this, and now let me share it with everybody else so they could know what I know. And I think that will make testing a better world to live in.
Right. So you mean to say sharing is caring?
Yeah, there you go. Sharing is caring. That you wrapped it up perfectly.
All right.
Caring is sharing. And to that, I would say thank you very much for reaching out to me and having me on your program, where I could just pass on knowledge. And I'm available for any other time you want to talk about something other than Klassi-JS, but just on a testing automation, from a whole testing automation point of view. I'm also available for that. So you can just reach out. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Larry. We are glad that you came here and presented a tool named as Klassi-JS and shown a demonstration to us. Thanks, Larry, for joining us over STET and sharing your knowledge based on your experience in your tenure in IT industry so far. Hope our audience would learn a lot of things moving on this session, and we would be expecting more such deep dive sessions in upcoming days as well. We wish you all the best for upcoming projects on which you're working on, and thanks for being part of our STET journey.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.